Welcome back, everyone, to the FloTrack podcast. We are recording Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. Subscribe to the FloTrack podcast YouTube page if you haven't. Email the show, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. A lot to cover today. We're going to recap NCAA Prelims, talk about Athingmo's collegiate record, talk about some unpredictable results in Gordon's favorite event, the men's 5,000. We'll touch on Doha. We'll talk about Hobbs Kessler and Arian Knighton holding it down for the high schoolers. Another big race from Allison Felix as well. We could go on and on and on. Gordon, good morning. How are you?
Doing good. It's been a long time since we talked track, and so much has happened. I feel like almost like a whole season of content happened in about 3 or 4 days, from the pro to college to high school scene. It was an incredible weekend and a lot to talk about. So I'm excited to break it all down with you, Kevin.
Yeah, likewise. I think, again, things are coming to a head here. We're a couple weeks out from the trials, and there's no more waiting around. If someone's still not raced, now you're asking serious questions, and I think it's legitimate to ask, hey, where's this person been? Why aren't they there? And then we're also seeing the collegians really ramp up, as they do pretty much every single year. But when we had a year where there was no competition, in a normal year starts to feel incredibly packed. I want to start first with the prelims, though. And just get your general takeaway. We'll talk about Athingmo in a moment here, but who are the big winners? Who came up short? Whose title chances as a team were impacted by what we saw happen this weekend in the East and West prelims?
So most of the team battling on the men's and women's side didn't get really much big changes. Texas did lose a couple key point scorers on the women's side, but they also weren't in the running to win nationally. They weren't at the same level as the Texas A&M women or USC women. So the team battle, which we will kind of discuss maybe next week or the week after, I guess next week or later on this week, when we update the final NCAA rankings, which I'm working on. I was working on them last night. But one thing I want to take away is just like about the prelims in general. And so I did a little math. There are a total of 80 events that were competed. So 20 per region. 20 per gender per region. So 40 in the East, 40 in the West. So you have 81 seeds, 82 seeds, 83 seeds, etc. And I did the math. 77 of the 80 number one seeds qualified for nationals. 77 of the 82 seeds qualified. 70 of the 83 seeds qualified. So 96% of the one seeds, 96% of two, 87% of the three seeds. Basically, when you go all the way down to the top six seeds, over 70% always qualified. So of the six seed, like 59 out of 80 qualified. When you go all the way down to the 12 seed, 46% of 12 seeds qualified. They're right on the bubble, right? Because top 12 go. And I just thought it was kind of interesting to see kind of the breakdown of how likely your seed would qualify. I bring this up because, we had a weird year where there was a potential that if you were ranked 33rd to 48, you wouldn't have even made this meet, right? Because they were going to be only top 32. I did a tweet, the first person who qualified for nationals that was not ranked in the top 32, so only got in because of this going back to the 48, was Brandon Hicklin of North Carolina A&T. He was ranked 35th in the East, and he qualified. I did math. So the number of people who came into the meet ranked 33rd to 46 and 33rd to 48 and qualified was 25 people. So 25 men and women who wouldn't have been able to be at this meet are now at nationals. 25, but it's 25 out of a total of 960. So it's a very small percentage, right? 25 divided by 960 is 2%. So increasing it to 48 got an extra 2% of athletes to the national meet. I did want to give a shout out to who were the lowest ranked athletes who qualified. There were two athletes who were ranked 46th in their region.
Mm.
So 46 out of 48 and qualified. And they were Isaiah Griffith, a senior triple jumper from Oregon. He was ranked 46th. So big for Oregon. They're in the
Yeah.
point running. And then Tyler Davis, who's a freshman from Florida, in the 200. He qualified.
Mm.
So the distance-wise, the lowest distance qualifiers were in the 5K and the 10K. It was the women's East 5K. Maddie Denner, she came in ranked 42nd in the East, and she qualified. And Victor Schitsma, Oklahoma State 10K runner, he was ranked 41st in the men's 10K in the West, and he qualified. So it's kind of a big shout out to the people who no one ever thought would make it, who made it. Pretty cool. And my picks in the 5K in the East and West, I was I wasn't. I didn't go. That. I didn't go 48 for 48.
How close did you get? If you're doing all these numbers, if you're crunching all the numbers, that's the only number I really care about. What was your batting average here?
I didn't do that math because I knew it wasn't perfect.
Okay.
Once I knew I got one wrong, I was like, it's out. Yeah. I do want to talk about, there were two big, one big, there's a couple, let's talk about, this is this thing. So,
you're very excited. You did all your numbers and now you're excited.
So Johanna Gretschel did an interview with Texas head coach Edric Floreal back right before Big 12 championships to talk about like the prelims. And basically for the top teams, the only thing that could come out of prelims is disappointment, right? Because it's all about your one of your star point scorers not making it because of a false start, whatever. Texas had a craziness where Tara Davis was a DNS in the hurdles. She was the #1 seed, dealing with an injury that she tweeted out or Instagrammed out that she was dealing with a leg injury after her jump. But Chanel Brissett, I'm not sure if you heard the story. Did you hear the story about Chanel Brissett?
I did not. I did not hear the story.
So apparently she false started at the West Prelims in the first round.
Yeah. Right, and they were supposed to run it again. They're supposed to run it again.
And then they were going to run it again to let her qualify via just beating the fastest top 24 time to get a next round. And then that was going to be the plan. And then right before that was about to happen, after the men's 10K or whatever they were going to do it, I'm not sure what day they were going to do it, there was a second protest to kind of protest the protest, to kind of cancel this runoff, and therefore Chanel Brissett couldn't run. And apparently she was very livid and not happy with it because of the apparently it was the Texas A&M coach who protested their protest that didn't let her attempt to run in the top 24 because it most likely would have knocked out a Texas A&M athlete because she would obviously been able to run a top 24 time. Because she's could potentially win nationals. And so apparently there was a little bit of a controversy with that situation.
It's not track season. It's not championship track season until you have people protesting a protest. That's when you know we're really rounding into form. Track is crazy, man. Does anybody know the rules? Right? It's just like, if you've allowed her to run, right? How do you then go back and say, no, she can't run? So one of the calls is completely wrong at this point, right? How does that happen? How does that? I mean, I feel for her from the perspective of like, official says, hey, you can do it again, right? And you've been reinstated and you have this opportunity and you get ready and you get prepared to run again. And then you can't. Like, the call should be made correctly the first time.
Yeah.
It's not like this is an in the moment block charge debate. They're looking at video, I'm assuming, right? They're looking at numbers. They're looking at that start to make sure, hey, was it legal or not? Then make the call correctly the first time, right? Make the call correctly the first time. You shouldn't have to then go back and have a secondary protest to then decide. And look, if it was correct the first time, then call it correct the first time and then deny the first protest. It's just, there's so many events in track, so many rules. And the more I cover it, the more I'm around it, the more I'm convinced that very few people actually know. Like what we go meet to meet, and just like people are making stuff. Remember when people would race under protest, like at
Yeah.
Diamond League meets? And it was just like, well, what's the standard? Like, who gets to run under protest and who doesn't? Because then other people would just, they get DQ'd and they just walk off. And then other people get DQ'd and they just stay there. And I'm thinking, what incentive do you have to walk off? You can just say, I'm running this race under protest, right? It's like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. You just say it, and then you can just move on with what you're doing. And then eventually I think they crack down on that. But then you have these situations, a la John Drummond way back in the day where people are like, no, I'm not going to leave. Like I was wronged. Like there's got to be a better way to adjudicate this stuff fairly, because track is, I get it. It's tough. Once the race passes, you can't go back and do it again. It's over. You can't get everybody back on the track to race it again. But it feels like year to year, meet to meet, we make, like, rules get made up and discarded willy nilly, and there's very little consistency to it, because if she's in, she's in. If she's not, she's not. Let's clarify it. Anyway,
Like, could you imagine in an NFL game, a coach challenges a call and then the ref upholds it or like changes the call, and then the other coach challenges the challenge, and then it gets
mm-hmm.
flipped again? Like, it would be insane, but that's what happens in track. And Chanel Brissett she tweeted out, she was not happy with it. She said, "You get no cool points for being the bigger person. I will always choose pettiness." This is a great tweet. Because it's
I
always
went to a,
like, you're always
I,
told to be the bigger person, but in this case, she did not give.
I went to an Oregon USC football game back in the day where I believe Mike Bellotti challenged a challenge, and I was pulling for Oregon. And it was the highlight of the game because we were getting destroyed, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I think the refs were so confused. Like that's not
That's
in the
not how
rule
this
book. You
works.
can't. Yeah, that's not. We've made the ruling. We've moved on. Let's keep going. Okay, what was your biggest, if you had to pick one, what was your biggest surprise from all of prelims?
Got to be Nico Young not qualifying. I mean, how you are, he's run 13:24 and he gets eighth in his heat. Ultimately, he needed it because it was a slower heat. He needed to have gotten fifth in his heat. He runs 14:03. If you look at the splits, Travis, if you go up to the top and go to heat one, he basically wasn't able to close.
Right. He was there. He was there with 2 laps to go. He was there.
He was there, and then he was there with 1 lap to go, and then just fell apart in the final 400 because basically the top two guys, Grijalva and Hawker, were split in 54s, and then the rest of the crews were running 56 to 57s, and he runs a 60. What's your takeaway? I'm surprised that he wasn't able to put himself in there and be able to close. Do you?
Yeah,
I mean, what do you take
I
away from this?
agree. Well, I agree. I thought after his Drake 5,000, where he didn't kick with Morgan McDonald, but no one's expecting him to kick at that level right now. But he showed some closing speed there. I thought that he'd be able to do it in this meet too. I guess if you're coming into outdoor, if you're like, okay, what's the worst case? What's the only real weakness Nico Young has other than experience, right? It would have been, hey, can he close like Grijalva? Can he close like Hawker? And that's not a really critique of him. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and we saw what he did in cross country. So you'd think, okay, endurance is not an issue. Strength is not an issue. The issue, if there is one, is going to be closing speed. So I wasn't entirely surprised that this is how he went out. I'm guessing next time he'll put himself in a little bit better position, maybe ratchet it down a bit from farther out. I mean, this is it is interesting. I'm looking at these results here, and just because we're at this meet, Abdi Ibrahim from New Mexico finished 1 spot ahead of him. Do you remember him from that Las Vegas cross country meet? He's the one who won the B heat. He was in the B heat in that Vegas race. Nico was in the A heat and gave Connor Mance all he could handle. Just interesting how they ended up right next to each other in this race all these months later. Your 5K is, I don't want to say falling apart because we still got a lot of big names there. We still got Grijalva. We still got Hawker. We still got Kiptu. We still got Cooper Tier. but I think your big, what was it? Your big 10 is basically down to 5 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you had Mance and Kurgat scratch, and now you
Right.
have, you know, Nico Young not make it. You have Eduardo Herrera, who was a 13-20 guy, not make it. It is starting to fall apart, but here's the thing. It was never going to be a 10-man race with 100 meters to go. It was going to
Mm,
still become like a 2 to 3-man race in the final 200. So while it's not the greatest NCAA 5K of all time anymore, I don't think, we still get to see a fun race between Tier, Hawker, Kiptoo, and Grijalva. I would say that is the clear top 4. If anyone else breaks up that top 4, I would be super surprised. Um, and hey, man, I know we're not supposed to we did a little debate here about who would win between Hawker and Grijalva in the prelim. I'm not sure if you watched it. They
I
both
did. I
looked
did.
like the same. They looked like the same runner in that final
Yeah.
400. It was weird. Like I thought it was going to be. They both closed really fast and they both jogged at the same time. It was a unique dynamic because they were looking at each other, but they were like, It makes me really excited because they clearly look like they're at the same level based on what I saw.
Here's the bummer part of it, though. You're right. It's still going to be awesome with those 4, but then we have to entertain the possibility that Hawker scratches. And then we're down to 3, which is still good, but it's a far cry from where we were before. We have a good comment here, and Patrick brings up a good point in the chat. How many tactical races has Nico been in so far in his career? He may just need championship reps. I agree. He
Yeah.
ran his high school career out front, pushing the pace. A lot of it was solo, crushing fields. Obviously, cross country, not much tactics involved there, over 10,000 as compared to a prelim 5K. It makes sense that he would struggle. I was doing a little bit of research and I was comparing him because you and Travis had me on this assignment last week that I don't even know if it's going to happen now. Thanks, by the way. I was comparing
Oh,
Nico to Ingebrigtsen. I was comparing him to Galen Rupp. I mean, people forget, Rupp had some bumps in the road early in his Oregon career as well. It wasn't NCAA success after NCAA success. And I think part of that is just getting that closing speed piece down. I know it's not as easy as just saying, get the closing speed, uh, and then snap your fingers and then you're all good. But that's something that, with age, he's going to get better. There's no reason why in 4 years he can't be closing like Luis Grijalva. I got to bring up Kiptoo, though, who, again, my pick for this race. You laughed at me at the beginning of the season, but now we think there's only 4 guys left. He didn't go full prelim time, his PR time, but let's look at Wesley Kiptoo's splits, because this is my favorite pastime right now, is looking at Wesley Kiptoo's splits. So he's out in 30 seconds for the first 200. So he's only a second and a half clear of the field. But then between 200 and 600, he runs about a 60, and everybody else runs a 70, which gives him a robust 9-second lead at the 600. And you're like, all right, maybe he just holds it there. No, it keeps growing. Gordon, by the 3K mark, he led by 22 seconds. 22 seconds. So it kept crawling up and up and up. He ends up winning by 9 seconds. It's funny in these races, you can look at it. It's funny to find the point where the field runs the exact same split as him, so the lead doesn't get any bigger. And then, like clockwork, they have to close. So Olin Hacker, Isaac Green in this race, they close 62 and then a 55. Kiptoo closes 66, 63. He gave up in the last 800. He ran a 209. They run well under 2 minutes, and he still wins by 9 seconds. We need a fancy name for it. It's like the Kiptoo point. I don't know what it would be, like where they catch and then they start to close, but it doesn't matter because he's so far ahead of everybody else.
There'd be like a 5 if track was popular in the mainstream media, there'd be like a 538 article, like what is the Kiptoo point, and like analyzing the average point where he starts running the same as everyone else and then slowing down but still has a lead. It'll be a fun little analytical project. I do want to say, on the women's side, it's kind of interesting. Nico Young not qualifying. Going into this season, there were 2-star freshmen, right? Nico Young and Caitlyn Toohey. Caitlyn Toohey didn't
On the
qualify in the women's 15. She then went out in the 5K, but she wasn't really in the factor at all in the 5K. It looks like she was just jogging. But she gets knocked out in the final round in the 1500. See what place she got. She got 9th in her heat. So she really wasn't in it. She basically would have had to run 6 seconds faster to qualify on time. What are your thoughts on Caitlyn Toohey's first year at NC State?
I mean, it's still a success, top freshman in cross. I think it was always going to be tough to do the indoor cross and then right into outdoor. She lowered her 1,500-meter PB. I think it's going to be a progression for her, but I think long-term it's probably better. I know it would be great and everybody wanted her to come in and dominate right away, right? But I think there's something to be said for gaining a ton of experience, doing a bunch of different events. Like, think of all the things she's done in the last couple months. She ran cross, she ran DMR, she ran some indoor times, she ran outdoor 5Ks, she ran outdoor 1500s. I didn't read a ton into it. I think she got a lot out of the season. NC State as a whole ran really solid. I think they're going to be one of obviously the favorite going into cross in the fall. Let's go back though for a sec. Can we go back for a second to the men's side of things in the 15? Do you think, is there a chance now that the men's 15 is the new men's 5,000? And what I mean by that is because you're going to get Hawker in the 15, because I don't think Hawker is going to scratch the 15. I think if he has to choose between one, he's going to choose the 15. So now you have Hawker, you have Nagoose, you have Iliad Kipsang, who is not shy about pushing the pace. He's got a little Kip2 in him. Of course, you have Sam Tanner out there as well, who advanced. We saw how quickly he ran indoors. So you got at least 4 guys there as well, too. Which one are you more interested in watching? Are you still sticking with the 5K?
Well, they kind of have a very similar dynamic, right? You have the Cole Hawker in both. You have would Cole Hawker have lost to this athlete if they ran indoor in a year Nagoose for the mile and a Luis Grijalva for the 5K, because they both focus on cross country? And then you have the Kenyan who just refuses to run and race normally, in Kip2, who goes out hard, and Iliad Kipsang, who ran 3:35 in the prelims. That an unnecessary 3:35, right?
That's the best type of 335s, though, or unnecessary 335s. Those are the best type.
Exactly. So it's going to have an interesting dynamic where I think, as a result, having Kipsang in the 15 and Kip2 in the 5, they're both going to go out hard. So I don't think we're going to see a 14 flat 5K. I don't think we're going to see a 3:42 1500. I think we're going to see like a sub 13:30 5K, and I think we're going to see like a 3:30. We could see it. We could see, potentially a repeat of the collegiate record in that 1500 final if Kipsang makes it honest, and then Hawker and Nagoose push each other into that 3:34 range. I think it's possible.
The chances of Kip2 running a different strategy in the 5 are about the same as Kipsang running a different strategy in the 1500. He's telling you what he is. He's telegraphed this all year. I don't know why he would go to the biggest meet of the season and then change up. He's doing this in random prelim races when he doesn't need to. Nagoose did that with the clear intent, right, to make the run, get the standard. I think even the collegiate record was secondary for Nagoose in that prelim. I think it was all about trying to get that Olympic standard there. But with Kipsang, that's not what it's about. For him, that's just what he does. For the same thing for Kip2 in the 5K as the same as Kipsang in the 1500. So we know what both those guys are going to do. The question is, who is going to take up the task of going behind them and trying to keep that gap closed, and how fast of time will they pull them to? Because I think we could see something legendary there if Kipsang does go out. I mean, look at his splits. He goes 41, 8 through 300, then and his to 700 from 300 to 700 ran a 58, then a 58, and then a 56. I mean, Nagoose was right there with him. Nagoose did not back down. He got towed to a 336. But I'm sure in the back end of Goose's mind, he's thinking, wait, this is a prelim. What am I doing all this for? Whereas if an NCAA final and he's got Cole Hawker on his shoulder too, like Elliot Kipsang is going to be the best table setter possible for this race. Because obviously he thinks he can win, but he's willing to run this hard from the gun. It's going to be a sensational race. I don't think people should sleep on that one at all. I want to talk about a thing, Mo, though. The ultimate prelim time is PR time, because for her, prelim time was collegiate record time. And I got to say, Gordon, 49.68. I'm running out of things to say about a thing, Mo. Like, this is unprecedented. I know it was a busy weekend. I know results come fast and furious every single weekend, but a thing, Mo, now has the collegiate record outdoors in the 800, collegiate record outdoors in the 400, collegiate record indoors in the 800. She was part of A&M's 4x4 title indoors. She was she's going to be part of A&M's squad outdoors, which could win a team title as well, too. Like, to do this as a freshman and to do this in these two different events that most people haven't done, like this is not a thing that people specialize in the modern era, right? You see Emmanuel Career do it, and it's great. You go back in the day, you look at Alberto Juantorena, what he did in the Olympics. That's great, but it's just not something that you see done, the 4.8. And she's doing it with such ease. You called this one. You said she's going to go for the collegiate record in this race, running on her home track. I guess we should not be surprised now about anything that she does.
Yeah, I mean, she has proven that she is like, this is what she is. There's no like fluky race of just had one quick 400 they'll never repeat. Like, she is consistently going to be a 50 flat, 49 high 400 meter runner right now, and basically be able to run a 157 to 159 in an 800 as of right now. So, like, she is the prototype. She is what we don't get to see often, right? Because we do, like, a Donovan Brazier probably could run if 43 seconds, maybe 44 low, but he doesn't do it because he is just 100% all in on the 8. And while he might be able to split a 4x4 here and there, he's not incentivized to be really challenging, Michael Norman and Fred Curley right now. He just wants to focus on the 8. It's just great that we're finally having a true 4.8 runner. We never get that, right? We always get the, hey, I might do a 4x4 split here or there, or I did the 800 once, but this is great, and she's doing it at a young age, and I hope she continues. I really hope that she doesn't choose one. I hope she stays with both, because we see 1 and 200 runners all the time, right? All the time. You see 2-4 people. You see 15 5Ks, right? You see a 15 10Ks. We don't see 4.8s really often at all, really ever. You can count them on one hand. I really hope that her pro career, she is basically, when she's healthy, always doing the 4.8 double at pretty much any meet that she enters, any like national meet that she enters. The same way, you're always going to see, Sha'Carri Richardson enter the 1 and the 2. I want to always see a Thing Mo enter the 4 and the 8.
Which means those people who make the schedule out there need to make the double possible from here till eternity. Just keep doing it. Always get one standardized schedule, copy, paste. Every World Championships, every Olympics, just use the same schedule. We don't need to change the schedule. Just find one that works with all the doubles and then do it. And the 4.8 should be one of those doubles. I like her race selection this year. I like the fact that she's focusing on the 4 here and going to go to the 8 for the trials. I think that's going to help keep her fresh. You know what should have been the clue, Gordon? You know what should have been the blinking red light? And we've been following her career forever, watching her in AAU. But remember that 600-meter race indoors at the U.S. Champs? It was 2019. I think Travis maybe can find it on her results page there. She went against Raven Rogers in that U.S. Champs, and it was a 600. Off year 600, 2019, I believe. And she won. And, you're thinking indoor time, off distance. The dialogue around that race became, man, what's Raven Rogers, got to get sharp. Got to get sharp. Can't be losing to Thing Mo. Well, Thing Mo ran a 123.5 in that race. 123.5 in 2019. So that was what? As a high school junior, that should have been a clear indication of where this was going. But I think instead, people fixated on reasons to maybe, okay, let's wait. Let's give it more time. No. That was a big. That was a start. That was a bold, italics, 48-point font arrow pointing where this was going. And we should not be surprised at what she's doing now. It's fantastic to watch. You said before, hey, she can make the team in the 4 for the U.S. I think that's clear now as well, too. This removed any doubt going sub 50 with such ease in this race. Do you think she's going to go faster at NCAAs?
Maybe, but I wouldn't see herself pushing it, to be honest. I mean, she is going to have the 4x4 in the back of her mind. I think she's going to be focused on trying to score 10 points in the 4 and then anchor a fast 4x4 and be able to come home with 20 points for Texas A&M because they are in the team race. She's just so much faster than everyone else that I think she'll definitely she won't do PR time. Prelim time is PR time at all, right? In the finals, she's going to be like, I guarantee this week, get the win. Let's get to the 4x4, get that win, and then get ready for the trials. I don't think she might run 49.9 again or something like that, but I don't think she's going to be trying to run like 48 or 49.2. Maybe save that for the week after at the trials if she wins the 4.
Credit here to Stacey Ann Williams of Texas. A sophomore, runs 50.3. Sensational mark, sensational time. Any other year, that might be enough, but you're just going against one of the best of all time here in a Thing Mo. And I think even the most optimistic prognostications would not have had Mo doing this. Maybe in one event, but not in 2 events. And that's what she's doing here. She's a class above for sure. Anything else on prelims before we move on to pro/high school or high school pros, however you want to call it?
No, I think that's it. I think there's a lot of stuff that went down this weekend. I think we should get into it.
Oh, real quick. Hold on. One more on prelims. The 100.
What?
100 is going to be good. 100 doesn't get enough love. Not enough people talk about the 100 in track, Gordon, so I wanted to talk about it here real quick. No. Michael Williams, 10-0. That's serious. And then Sean Maswangani of Houston, 10-04. They were in different heats. And then the women's 100 is shaping up. Oh, and I should say on the East, then you had Jovan Martin, 997, wind-aided. Laird is solid, dude. The guy just wakes up and runs sub 20. It's incredible what he's doing. He ran 10 flat. Wind-aided. No, I mean, he's just like, he's making sub 20 look easy. And we know that's not true because we see these Diamond League meets all the time where people don't break 20, or maybe one guy breaks 20 and he's making it look easy. Yes, it's wind-aided, but like, look at his body of work this year. It's incredible. But the women's 100 is going to be really cool too. I think it's settling down to be 4 people. Twanisha Terry gets a big PB, 1089. Cambria Sturgis, 1092. Tamara Clark, one of your picks to win, 1098, and then Kemba Nelson of Oregon, 1098 as well too. Okay, we'll move off that. We'll move away from the college kids. Hobbs Kessler, your thoughts? 334.36 breaks the high school 1500 meter record.
Okay, you ready for this? So first of all,
yeah,
what Hobbs Kessler did is amazing. What this race was great. We needed finally a fast race on U.S. soil with featuring predominantly Americans running not 338. Craig Angles 333. I think that showed that he is to be challenged with, like, the idea that 2 college kids and a high school kid could make a team and everyone's just ignoring Craig Engels. 3:33 shows that he's his normal form. But obviously, the story out of this race was Hobbs Kessler running 3:34.36. He's 18 years old. He runs 3:34.36. He breaks the high school record. That was 3:38, but a high school 1500 is not really run that often, right? Because how often are they doing that? I mean, the real thing is you could say this converts to a 3:51 mile, which is clearly faster than what Alan Webb ever did. And it's incredible. He's the fastest high schooler of all time. And we should praise it. My main thing that whenever I see this is I always think about, is this unusual? Is this a once in a generation type performance? Or is this just a result of the times that we're in? And I think it's really clearly more a result of the times that we're in, as opposed to this is going to be a record that stands for forever, the same way Jim Ryan's record stood forever and Alan Webb's record stood forever. I honestly think we're going to see more Hobbs Kesslers in the next 10 years. And I think we will see more high school kids run 3:34 to 3:36 in the 1500 in the next 10 years, which is great.
Why do you think that?
Okay. So first of all, let's think about how crazy is what Hobbs ran. He ran 3:51 in the IAAF points tables. A 3:51 is equivalent to 1,183 points. That is the equivalent of running a 10:0700, a 20:24 200, a 44:9 400, a 1:44.7 800, 13:07 5K, and 27:27 10K. Now, if you look at that, seeing teenagers run those sprint times, we have seen that multiple times. Seeing teenagers run the 13:07s, 27:27s on a 144, we don't see that often. And I think
or ever in the US, but yes, yeah.
Or ever, right? 13:07.
13:07's fast.
But, yeah. I take it back. But like I think it shows that in the US, our sprinters have been able to get to an elite level quicker than distance runners. I think it's because of the way the event is, that just your body is able to run a 10:07 quicker than it is to be able to run a 3:34 when you're 18 years old. I don't know. But what I wanted to say is I really do think Hobbs Kessler, I think this performance is the same as when Donovan Brazier ran 143 as a freshman in college. I think Hobbs is basically, I know he's in high school, but I look at him as just like a phenom freshman in college, because he's having college training. He's training with Nick Willis and being coached by a world-class coach. He's not being coached by the local gym teacher, and he's having like a college type focus of like doing the right things that you get once you leave high school and go into college. And you saw Donovan Brazier go from a 147 guy in high school to 143 his first year. And I think we're seeing that with Hobbs Kessler. Hobbs Kessler goes from like, hey, I'm like a 410, 415 type guy in the mile. And then the next year, I'm now running 3:34 in the 1500. And I think it's because of the training environment. And obviously, a lot of it, you have to have the talent and the dedication and the hard work. But I think this is just a result of his environment. And so I think we're going to see more high school kids do the Hobbs Kessler method. And I mean, we saw it happen 3 or 4 years ago with Jacob Ingebrigtsen, right? He was like, how is this teenager running world-class times? Well, it's because he's training like a pro. He has 2 of the greatest training partners in his 2 older brothers. I think we're seeing that with Hobbs Kessler. Why is he running 3:34? He's training like a pro. If you take a world-class, if you take an all-time U.S. talent and put him in an environment to run well, we're going to get this. And I think it should encourage us to do it more. We should encourage, I think there's a lot of other untapped talents out there who should do it more. And yeah, that's what I say. I think Hobbs Kessler is basically the opening is it's a prototype. It's the example that other future elite high school runners are going to base off of in order to get to the next level at an earlier stage, as opposed to waiting till your freshman year when you finally get to college training.
Okay. So basically you're saying you think US 1500 meter running, US distance running is going to catch up to sprinting in this next generation, is what you're saying. And you're saying
and the
part
way
of the
it
reason
does
they're
it,
going to
yeah,
is I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand what you're saying before I tell you why you're wrong. And the way they're going to close that gap is they're going to have more access to quote unquote professionalized high level training. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, that you normally
Okay.
don't get in high school because you're coached by the local gym
But
teacher.
do high school sprinters have that now? I mean, I know we're seeing more people go pro earlier, but your run of the mill average high schooler obviously doesn't have access to that. I don't know. I like the tables like you do. I'm a big believer in the tables as giving a baseline, but it's not an end all be all. And I look at what Webb did 20 years ago, and it's crazy to think it was 20 years ago because I am old. And I think there's a reason why it took somebody 20 years to break that mark. And during that time, you had obviously the Webb effect, right? Webb, Ritz, and Hall started this or helped further, I think, along with a combination of things. I think it's just the preponderance of, big elite meets helped as well, too. People sharing training and being able to see what other people are doing, I think played a part in that as well, too. And I think if it was hey, this is just, this is now going to be common and Hobbs is kicking in the door, I think we would have seen it before Hobbs, right? I mean, there's been guys who have come through the system who have had high level training in the last 10, 20, 15 years who haven't gotten to these heights. I agree with you that it is a perfect storm here in that you have obviously a huge talent. You have clearly something that's working where he has a professionalized training environment where he has access to Coach Warhurst, who's doing a great job training him and working out with pro athletes as well too. But I don't know. I don't know if like the way you're talking about this is the way people would talk about sub fours in general, right? You had that big drought. Webb did it, and then the next guy, and then the next guy, and the next guy to the point where 359 is just like standard. Matthew Mayton did it, and I mean you could look at go on down the list, Legowski, et cetera, et cetera. Leo Dashback this last year, but I think, and I agree with you there, that there will be more sub fours. But I think when you get down into, I mean, Hobbs is running what you said, equivalent to 351. I think when you get to 355, I think that's where you start testing the limits of that. Hey, this is just going to become the norm thing, and you have to have somebody who's supremely special. I also want to point out one thing, and I think you mentioned it at the top. This race was special, and that's what it also takes too. Just like Webb's race was special. Don't get me wrong. Webb had the benefit of running in a pre-classic with Hicham El Garouge, and you go back and watch that race, and Webb ran a really smart race. But like, what if the Portland Track Festival 1500 ended up being a 336 race? I mean,
probably runs 337, 338. Yeah.
Right. So again, and part of that is getting access to these races, running enough of these races so you're in there at the right time to run, to take advantage of the opportunity. But there's a chance this could have been a 336, 337 race, and we never would have known. I think that's a piece of it as well too.
Also,
so
you got to look at. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Also, you got to look at what the carrot is. In high school, the carrot is 4 flat. So it's not surprising that pretty much a majority of the people who break 4, they're all running 359 because they're all thinking about breaking 4. In this situation, the carrot is the Olympic standard, which is now faster, right? If we were in 2016 and Hobbs Kessler was coming around, he wouldn't be running 334. He'd be running 335, 3:33.9, like, because the standard would have been 3:36, right? So
Yeah,
we created a better carrot. So that means it forced everyone to try to run a second faster, which helps, right? I'm sure whatever the standard was during Alan Webb's time, if he's trying to make the Olympics or whatever, he's not. No one tries to run 5 seconds under the standard, right? They all try to just like pace for the standard. I think that's also a reason why we saw 3:34. It's because it happened to be also an Olympic year. If this was just a U.S. off year, right,
mhm.
where there's no like there's just a U.S. champs and the standard is just like 3:37, he's gonna run 3:37.1, right? Like, I think it's perfect storm, like you said. The training, I would also say the pandemic, where he's under raced for a whole year going into this, so he's
Sure.
fresher. And then the carrots, the environment of that race. I mean,
Well,
and
listen, we
he's
won't
yeah,
know. We'll know in 5 years, 6 years, right? Like whether or not the floodgates opened because of Hobbs Kessler, right? This isn't something that is going to be an unsolvable question, right? If 334 is still the record down the line, we will definitely know. I think though when you talk about a guy who just turned 18 running faster than the collegiate record, right? And running anytime a person that young runs a time that could put them in contention for a Diamond League, I don't think you can expect that to become the norm unless the entire event just gets incredibly quicker over the next few.
but like you have to put
That's my point.
I mean, there's caveats to saying the phrase he ran faster than a collegiate record. There's also a 19-year-old in college right now who ran faster in the mile. Cole Hawker ran 3:50 in the mile, and he's
Sure,
only
but
19.
my point being is when you run just like when Webb ran 352 or 353, when you run a time that is so far out of your classification, I I don't think it's unreasonable for people like me and other people to be like, wow, it may be 20 years, 30 years before we see something like that again. I get what you're saying, which is like, no, this lines up. The bar is just going to keep getting raised and raised and raised, and eventually there's going to be a bunch of people running this time. But I think the reason people are reacting the way they did is because it's such a huge jump up, such a huge improvement from where it was, from a guy who's like, to me, seems undertrained, right? Under raced. Nick Willis said, what, he hasn't even won a high school title yet. I mean, this guy is relatively new to running. It's incredible what he's been able to do. So I'd take the over on when you think this record is going to be broken, because it sounds like you're saying that you think it's going to happen again. I just think, and I said this back when he ran, was it 357 indoors? Is that right?
Yeah,
I said we need to start looking at 359s differently than 357s. And what I meant by that was Kessler's mark and the manner in which he did it was so much more impressive than these guys who were sneaking under 4. Granted, high score breaking 4 is amazing. It's sensational. But we get so wrapped up on that round number that we lose all perspective of like, one indicates that a guy could go on and do this, and the other one's like, oh man, you had 6 cracks at it, and then senior year you ran 359.8. You're going to go join a college team where 5 other people can do that. You're going to need to continue to improve. That's the difference between the two, right? 357 is not the same as a 359, just as we wouldn't talk about, you wouldn't talk about a 10-1 the same way you talk about a 9-9. But everything gets lumped together just because we're so obsessed with this idea of sub 4.
yeah. I just think that I mean, I've been following track numbers like religiously for the past 7 years, ever since I joined FloTrack, and I just see trends, and I'm not just I'm looking at the high school. I look at the college trends, and I look at the U.S. trends, and I look at the international trends, and I just see where certain events we are running faster than normal, and certain events where we're running slower than normal when it comes to the U.S. college or high school scene. And I really look at the men's mile/1500 as an event where we are naturally running slower than normal compared to other events. I mean, there are other like field events where we're not doing as well, but I think that's because of lack of promotion of that event where not everyone is in, influenced to become a discus thrower the way they are influenced to become a shot putter or a long jumper, right? But I do think the mile 1500 is a unique event where it is the most popular distance event, but for some reason it's an event where the best of our best aren't, like, I honestly think in 10 to 15 years, every year in the US, there will be 5 people who run sub 330 or 330, sub 331, and that the 15th best person is like a 334.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think everything's going to get shit. And I think in high school, I think in 10 years, I think there'll be, in 10 years, we will go like 10 straight years where 2 people break 4 every year. I think that will happen. And I just think that everything is just shifting to a normalization of where we're going to look at 334s and 335s and 336s. That just means you're good.
Well, right.
And then 330s means you're elite. Yeah.
If you're using the same, like, 100-meter analogy, right, which is what's 359 is something like what, 10-2? I don't have off the top of my head. I know it's like 46 and change, but it's like, yeah, we see 10-2 and 46-second high school boys all the time. But then how often do you see a 10-0, right? Or how often do you see a 45 low?
Yeah.
Totally different scenario. So I could see a future where we see a 359 every year, but then that doesn't mean that a 356 or a 357 is going to become commonplace, and that's just the reality of it. I want to get your opinion on one other thing here. You continue to get roasted in the comments, which is great.
Is it about Hobbs? I have one more thing to say about Hobbs.
Well, can he make the Olympic team? That's what I want to know about Hobbs Kessler.
Well, not only can he make the Olympic team, could we have an Olympic team with 2 college kids and a high school kid? Could it be a Cole Hawker, Yair Nuguse, Hobbs Kessler, 1, 2, 3?
I think Matthew Centrowitz will have something to say about that.
I know. I think Centro said Craig Engels. So can he make it? Yes, he can. I don't think he can win it. But the thing is, looking at the field now, Craig Engels has showed that he is fit in top 3. Centro showed that he's fit in top 3. And then Hawker and Nuguse are also in that range, right? So can he beat 3 of those guys? 3 of those 5 to make the team? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he can make. I don't think he'll make the team.
This race in Portland added a bunch of people to that list because we went in with a couple, and then you have Kessler in there that makes it. You have Sietti that makes it. You have Henry Wynn that makes the standard.
Travis, pull up my standard list.
The event where times matter the least is the 1500. Entry times matter the least in any event is the 1500 because the race is run in a completely different manner than any other event. So that's something you have to keep in mind. So here's the standard list.
Put it up on the screen so people see. There
Drum
it is.
roll, please.
Boom. So Centro, Engels, Henry Wynn, Hobbs Kessler, Vincent Chiatti, Yair Nuguse, Josh Thompson all have the standard, all run sub 335. And then you have Johnny Gregorek, who's run 335. Brandon Kidder's run 335. Mason Furlick run 335. Good for his steeple chances. Cooper Tears run 335. Avila 335. Hawker, who doesn't have the standard yet, is run 335. And then Prekel, Brazier are all 335. So 15 people have run under 336. Again, this goes back to 2019. So some have done it earlier than later. But I mean, what's your rapid fire top 3 order right now? Or who's your top 4?
My top 4 right now, I'm not betting against Centro. I'm not and this is in no particular order. I think Engels is going to make
put it in order.
Right now I will go Centro. I will go Nuguse. I will go Engels over Hawker for that last spot. That's my grouping right now. The issue too with Kessler, just because he's so young, rounds matter. Rounds matter in the 1500
Yeah.
and getting the reps. Now, but this is where running in these types of races will help him, as opposed to if he ran a regular high school season where he's blowing people out and then he just shows up at the Prefontaine Classic, runs a fast time. He's done a bunch of races. I remember he's out here in Austin, tripped and fell. And that's good experience to getting used to running in a big crowd. So his learning curve isn't as steep as other people's at his age, but it's still tough to go through that process, manage the nerves. But he's clearly shown top end he can run with those guys. I just don't think it's going to be a 333, 334 race at the trials. So you can toss out a lot of this, and it's going to all come down to managing effort, closing speed, et cetera, et cetera. I think Centro is fine. I think we saw this weekend, he looked pretty good in that 800. It's interesting to compare his 800 to a couple weeks ago, right? When he ran the 150 and everybody was panicking. And now he gets fifth, but he runs 146. So
which I said he would. I think I said he'd get fifth. I said he'd get fifth.
Yeah. Yeah.
To tell you my as of June 1st, 1500 order.
Sure.
I think Centro wins it. I think there's literally a 3-way lean at the line for second between Hawker, Engels, and Nagus. And I think it's going to be like one of those photo finishes where like, hey, who has it? One of those is not making the team. It's going to be a 3-way. And I think that Nagus gets second. And I think Engels gets third and Hawker gets outleaned and gets fourth. Mm-hmm. That's what I think happens. What and I think Kessler kind of finishes like in sixth or something like that.
If Kessler makes the final, that's a huge success. Is an enormous.
Well, he should. He should make the final here.
Well, he's in high school.
12 people make the final.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's tough. You just named all those 335 people. He's run 334. It's not like there's like 100 miles of separation between there's a million guys all within a second and a half here. And I think someone like Josh Thompson is going to come to play at a meet like this. The veterans are going to be ready. They know how to manage their effort through these rounds. But there's another high school I think who has a better chance. And that's Arian Knighton in the 200. Because
bring up the 200
Florida,
list.
Well, no, bring up the fact that he ran 20.11 faster than Bolt ran for a U18 time and is only 0.02 off of Lyles' high school record. This guy's legit. And that 200 team is now incredibly hard. If you look at the 200 list there, you got to put, obviously, Lyles and Kenny B up there. Lairdez looks so solid. But I think those Knighton 2021, Lyles 2016 parallels are pretty strong right now.
Yeah, I think he's going to make the final. I think it's going to be hard, though, to make the team. I think he needs to be in the 19.9 range in order to make a team. But, yeah, it's so weird that just Olympic years bring out the stars from the high school age. You saw in 2016, you had Sydney, Michael Norman, Noah Lyles, Drew Hunter. And now here, I guess now 5 years later, you got Knighton. You have a Thing Mo, technically, who's in college, but still young. You have Hobbs Kessler and everyone else. It's just kind of cool seeing every 4 to 5 years a flock of. Because I remember people like, is this the greatest high school class of all time? You say that like now every 4 years because every 4 years is a new high school class. It's like, hey, we got a 200-meter runner. We got this high jumper now. We have this 600-meter runner and a thing. It's just crazy. It's wild.
Well, 16 was Holloway, Hunter, Norman, Lyles. I'm sure there's other people as well too. Just a crazy time here. Solid 200 for Trayvon Bromell too. I know he doesn't like to run that event. 20.2. He's racing. That means he's healthy. You got to like Bromell's chances. Other big sprint news I wanted to touch on. I know we're running out of time here. And hurdle news. Holloway,
we're out of time. I think we're out of time, right? We're out of time. We don't need to talk about this next thing, right?
Oh, you want to talk about Allison Felix running 50.6?
No, we're out of time.
Let's bring it up.
We're out of time. Aren't we out of time?
Allison Felix.
This is a 1 hour podcast.
All she does is win. No, I want to get your opinion on Bowerman here in a second, too. I want to get your opinion on Bowerman. And I know you'll like that segment. 50.6 for Allison Felix. in this American Track League meet. Again, just winning. She's just clicking off wins. She's running solid. I think she's going to round into form at the exact right time. I started the year thinking, okay, making the finals is going to be solid. Outside chance at top 3. I've revised that. I think she's going to get in the top 3, maybe even has a chance to take the trials. And part of that is because just you look at the field as a whole, nobody's really emerging there. You saw Waddle and Jonathan there behind her, 51 seconds. Gordon, she was 4th in Doha, right? Phyllis Francis was 5th in Doha, and she's beaten these women. So Felix looks real good in both the 4 and the 2. Again, to repeat, I think she's going to run both the 4 and the 2. I know some people are thinking that she's just going to run the 2. I think she's going to run both. I understand if you don't want to comment on this segment. If you want to just move on, it's fine.
No. So I've been on the it's over for Allison train all 2020 year long. But here's the thing. When you're on a train,
trains
don't go forever. Trains don't go forever. There's times when they stop and people get on and off the train. And I think
get your white flag.
Memorial Day weekend, the train stopped and I saw a nice little bakery, had some good donuts, and I was like, I'm going to go grab one. And then the train took off without me. So I'm not on the anti-Allison Felix train anymore. I'm just sitting here eating my donut. And I think she's going to make the team now. I have conceded. Is that the word, conceded?
Yes.
The election of who's going to make the 400, 200 meter teams to Allison Felix. I don't think she'll make the 200 team. I think she'll make the 4. I think she has a better shot in the 4 if I had to guess. But
dude, the 200
just because
is wide open too.
The 200 has obviously Sha'Carri as an obvious one, where I don't think there's an obvious. I mean, you could say if a thing Mo runs the 4, then we definitely have 2. Everyone is fighting for 2 spots, right? In the 4 and the 2.
Yeah.
Because you have Sha'Carri in the 2 and a thing in the 4. But yeah, I think she's definitely making the 400 final. Going to be on a relay and make it to the Olympics in another, 5th? Is it 4th or 5th Olympics she'll probably make? What is this?
5. It'll be 5.
5. Let's pull the Abdi Hamid double.
Yeah. I respect your concession statement there. I will not belabor the point. Okay.
All right, cool.
I want to talk about Bowerman, though. This is the last thing before we close here. And I know we missed some stuff. It was that busy of a weekend.
Talk about we'll tomorrow.
You want to talk about Bowerman tomorrow instead?
No, we talk about the other stuff tomorrow. But what do you want to say about Bowerman?
Oh, I just want after Portland Track Festival, which Bowerman person are you most concerned about? Jaeger, who hasn't run a full steeple yet, so we didn't see him here. Shelby Houlihan scratched, Lopez Lamong, or Krisha Schweizer.
It's just wild that this is a segment. Which Bowerman athlete are you most concerned about? How the turntables have turned, as Michael Scott would say. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing now, right? But first of all, I know Jerry's weird with like running, not running, but Shelby was entered and then scratched. Yeah. It's not like she didn't enter and she's just like, oh, okay, why aren't you racing yet? She was entered and scratched. So clearly there's a reason to not run the race. So the question is it a big reason? Like, if I go on a track and try to run 4-minute, 1,500 meter pace, I will break myself. Mm-hmm. Or is it like you have nothing to prove? Even if it's just a little minor thing, it's not worth risking it because you are a veteran, you're race sharp no matter what. You don't need the Portland Track Festival to feel good about yourself. So it could be one or the other. I don't know. I would range that it's not that serious of a reason versus being serious if I had to be a betting man for Shelby. So I'm not really that concerned about Shelby. So my concern maybe on Shelby is like 15% concern.
Okay.
My Jaeger concern level, it's at 50% concern, but it will jump to 0% or 100% within the next 7 days. right? Because he's got to
Okay.
run. He's not in the meet. He's not qualified in the steeple. He doesn't have a mark. So he needs to do something. He needs to go around the track at 3,000 meters long and go do it, So
Yeah.
maybe he's going to have to
Okay.
do one race, right? So I'm at 50% for Jaeger, where he'll go jump to 0 or 100 based on what happens the rest of this week. Schweizer, I'm at 0%
Listen, I know
concerned.
we started the show talking about how nobody knows the rules to track. Does Jaeger, the former U.S. champs, get a bye into the U.S. champs every year? Because I know that's been a thing in the past. Does that count in lieu of a trials qualifying standard? Because I'm thinking back to, was it Alan Webb getting into the meet one year and there being quite the hullabaloo? Just something to consider.
Oh, did you
While
see
you're
this?
looking that up,
This
did I
is
see what?
interesting.
Are you
There's
going
a
to say it or just make us
contingency
wait?
plan there's a contingency plan for, I mean, we're not going to deal with this, but it looks like US Trials has a contingency plan that I think they're going to select the top 3 on time based on who has just the fastest 3 times if they don't have a trials. I just saw that
When was
link
this?
come up.
Just right now?
It was a I don't know, but I just thought it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's not happening. We're having the trials, but I think if it gets canceled, I think they're going to select top 3 on time, because they have a link on their website called Olympic Trials Contingency Plan, Single Best Performance Rank Order
Yeah,
List, which makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
if there's no
Uh,
trials, that's what you do. You just take the 3 fastest times. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out
don't worry about it. Let's keep moving here. Listen,
eligibility requirements.
somebody said, "Don't worry about it. We'll have it for
Okay.
tomorrow's
Okay.
show." Someone brought up in the chat that Shelby ran a 350. That the rumor was Shelby ran a 357 time trial. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. We don't know if that's true. She didn't do it in a race though. We should mention there's bound people that are crushing it right now, right? We talked about Centro, GDS won the 8, went sub 2. She looks really solid. Fisher looks solid. Um, can I do an NBA comparison since Travis
Hit
isn't
me.
on this anymore to tell us to stop talking about the NBA? Okay, Jaeger right now is the Lakers as it currently stands. Right,
Okay.
so we don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like missed some time last year because of injuries, and now we're gonna kind of getting down to the wire here. Carissa, so she loses this race, but it was a big time rust buster for her, right? She gets 4th, runs 15 flat. I think she's the Jazz, has that
Okay.
first game hiccup, but then she's going to show her class when it comes time for the trials. Lamong is the Clippers here. Again,
Ooh, that's not
has,
that's not good for
well,
Lamong, but okay.
no, they're doing good. They're doing good now. They tied it up.
Yeah, they
But
tied it up. Yeah, yeah.
like some load management throughout the year, right? He hasn't been running at all, uh, which makes Shelby the 6. No, I don't know who that would make Shelby.
It's Sheld.
Oh no. Shelby's the Nets. Shelby's the Nets. Just in general, we haven't seen them together,
Yeah,
and now we're
yeah.
seeing them
Shelby is
finally.
nuts.
Or Harden, or that whole group. There you go. That's it.
You know who the Sixers is?
Um, let's see. Who would the Sixers be?
Is it like Elise
Are
Cranny?
you gonna say? Are you gonna say? I thought you were gonna say Centro, but
Central? No, yeah,
that would
Central.
be it. That's giving the Sixers way too much. That's not giving Centro enough credit, as we should
Well,
do.
Central. You
All
say
right.
Brooklyn is Central. Central's Brooklyn because they're all coming together. I don't know. Maybe Central's
No, Centro's the Bucks, all coming
Bucks
together at the right time, sweeping
coming
people.
together right time.
My Bucks,
Hey, man,
my beloved Milwaukee Bucks. People are like, no, not the
dude,
Clippers. No,
think about
I'm
this.
saying this after Game 4. The Clippers are looking good. I'm not trying to jinx Lamong at all. Clippers are now dialed in here, but like it took them a little while to get going. Lamong runs. This is we had that weird 2 heat thing. So Fisher and Kincaid are in 1 heat. Lamong wins the other heat in 13:26. He outkicks David Ribich, but like we haven't seen Lamong at all.
Yeah.
But we know he's legitimately good. He could be Kawhi. How about not the whole Clippers?
Kawhi, yeah.
I don't want to put that on him. Let's just give him Kawhi. So we know what he's capable of, but it's just a matter of him getting out there and doing it.
I just think it's wild. In the year 2021, we just did a 70-minute podcast, and not once was the name Galen Rupp mentioned the entire time. It's crazy. He runs a 10K, runs 28 flat, gets fourth in his heat, and we didn't bring it up once until now. I mean, I'm bringing it up at the end, but I think it's just kind of wild. I mean, FloTrack for years has been Galen Rupp because he's been the centerpiece of U.S. distance running. But now that he's in a marathon and kind of not racing as often, we only see him once every blue moon. It's kind of wild that that he wasn't that Galen Rupp became story number 12 of the weekend. It's kind of wild.
Oh, I don't even know. I should have ranked these. I don't even know if it would have been story number 12 because there's a whole bunch of other. Well, there's a whole bunch of others. We didn't talk about Brazier barely winning the 800.
Well, that's nothing.
We didn't talk.
No, that's not that story. Brazier's gonna win.
Mason Furlick runs 8:18 again. Sisson goes sub 15. Shamir Little, 53.12. Shamir Little might win trials.
I'm starting to think that.
Might mess around and get trials. Like and I mean I don't know what that'll mean for Tokyo, but she might end up winning. She runs the second best time of her entire career. Muhammad finally debuted, but she ran in the slower section, ran 55:01. So there would have been a bunch of stories above Rupp. I mean, he's a guy running in an event that's not his main event anymore. So
here's the question:
like what? Like yes,
he is. I think ranked 20. So the 10K field is supposed to be 24, right? And I think 25 athletes have the standard of sub 28. Galen Rupp, I think, is ranked 26th right now. But he's not, doesn't have the auto. He's just over 28 minutes. Would the U.S. Trials Committee change the rules and let one extra runner in the 10K to get Rupp in the field? And if that does happen, will there be upset people?
Oh, man. I just don't. I don't have the emotional energy for that, and I don't have it. I don't have enough left in the tank after all we've been through the past year. I just want to be happy at trials. Honestly, stuff
that's gonna
like
be
that,
a thing.
I know, and then they're going to interview the person that he pushed out, and we already know all the beats to that story. He's not going to be a factor in the 10K, so it
well, he won't have to
matter.
push anyone out. He wouldn't have to push anyone out. Although, he could just be the next one added.
No, but then they'll say, why didn't they add this other person? That's what will happen. Again, he's not going to be a factor in it. It's not his event right now.
Yeah.
The men's marathoner in the world who I would be interested in running a 10K, who I would tune in especially for, would be Eliud Kipchoge. That's him. That's like the list. On the women's side, there'd be more because obviously I'd love to see, Sisson.
Mo Farah, he's a marathoner now.
Okay. 2, you got me, but I don't really. I consider him fully back on the track now. But that's the extent of the people who I'm all in. Yeah, there's so many good 10,000 meter runners. You can focus on that, or 5,000, 10,000 runners. You don't need to do that. I don't think he's ended up running it, but in any event, I guess that's it. We'll leave it there. There's more to talk about tomorrow on this stuff. You know what we should do? Actually, we shouldn't do this, because this is tempting fate. We should look, and this would be a very easy exercise to do because you just literally look at the top 3 times. Who would be on the Olympic team with a contingency plan? And look at some of these crazy teams that would come up for the U.S.
We'll do that tomorrow.
Right?
We'll do that fun. Yeah.
Right, because you wouldn't know. A lot of times most track fans are pretty sophisticated, and they know, okay, well, just because that person's ranked 7th, they're good to go. But right now, for example, this would be, hold on, let me just tease this before we go. Fred Curley would be on the 100-meter team.
and Michael Norman, right? Would Michael Norman be on
Well,
it?
it depends if you're using last year. Here's another twist: Fred Curley would not be on the 400-meter team.
Man, Fred
So,
Curley, which I thought he'd do better against Norman in that Doha race.
what did I say I was going to do about that race last week, Gordon? What was I supposed to do?
I don't know. I don't take notes of everything you say. Sorry.
No, I asked you specifically to tell me not to read anything into it after last year.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm not going to take the bait. I took that race, I crumpled it up, I threw it in the trash, and it helped that everybody ran 44 mid, so it was not consequential in any way, shape, or form. I'm not reading anything into that. All right, we went long today, but thanks to Alon, thanks to Travis who already left. Lots to talk about. Yeah. So tomorrow, send in topics, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com if there's anything you want us to discuss, or tune in live tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central, and chat it up in the comments. We'll talk to you then.